Welcome to the TWBC Coffee Break podcast, bite-sized training for very busy women in business. Hello there and welcome to today's Coffee Break podcast. Thank you very much for joining with me today. I've got a special guest on the call with me today, and this guest has actually been on a call before. She's been on a podcast with us. Her name is Debbie Newman and she's from Armstrong Beach Marketing. Now Debbie previously joined us and recorded a podcast with us all about networking. It's called Nifty Networking and it was absolutely fabulous, I have to say, and we've had a massive feedback from everybody saying that they absolutely loved it and they wanted more tips and more information about networking. And networking is absolutely vital for businesses, especially nowadays, and it can be a lot of fun, so why not have a bit of fun in your business? That's where I look at things. So what we've done is we've asked Debbie to come back and join us again, but this time she's going to be talking about follow-up, because it's all very well doing networking, but really unless there's some kind of follow-up going on afterwards, then perhaps a lot of your efforts may be a little bit wasted. You're still having the fun, but not necessarily getting the business from it that you could be getting. So that's what Debbie's going to be covering with us today. So Debbie is a marketing expert. She's managing director of Armstrong Beach Marketing. If you want to take a look at the website, I'll give you the address. It's Armstrong and then Beach, which is BEECH.co.uk. And you can also meet with Debbie because she's actually the host of our Bath Premier Club. So if you're in the Bath area, then you can scoot along and have a chat with Debbie and actually meet her face to face, which is quite nice. So enough of me. Let's get on with the podcast. So, hello, Debbie. Thank you very much for joining us today. How are you doing today?
I'm good, thank you, and it's a pleasure.
Brilliant. Well, Debbie, I know obviously you've been along and sort of spoken to us before in the past about networking, and you gave us some great networking tips. But we thought what would be a really good idea would be to get you back to talk about what you do after you've been to a networking event, because it's all very well going to one and feeling that, you know, you achieved something. But I think the sort of main thing to do now is to make sure that the follow-up's right. So this is where you're a bit of an expert, aren't you?
I try and do it always, because otherwise I think very strongly that if you go to a networking event and you don't bother to follow up, you're really wasting your time, money and effort, and it's just not worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Debbie, you've got some tips for us, haven't you? So fire away, tell us all about your tips for follow-up after networking.
Okay. What I do first of all at the event is collect obviously the people's cards to whom I've spoken, and I try and annotate on those just something that as a visual reminder of who that person is. It could be a zany tie, it could be a wacky jacket, or whatever it is, just to bring back in mind the person. And I always put the date on the card. That can be really, really useful. Then when I'm back in the office, I'm a great fan of Outlook, but whatever data management system you use, I put everybody's details on Outlook. It's a bit of a pain, it takes a bit of time, but it's actually really worth it in lots of ways. So there you go, you've got the cards on Outlook. And then I just also put the date where I met them, and if there's anything specific about them, what I might follow them up with. I also have categories on my Outlook, so for me I break them down into sort of professional practices, all sorts of things like that, and whether or not I've spoken to them about adding them to my email, and I put them straight on my email if I have. Remember, at a networking event, by exchanging cards, it doesn't mean that you're giving somebody permission to add to your database to do mail outs. You must get that permission, whether it's at the time or subsequently. What I tend to do these days, you can of course just do the nice little email which says, really nice to meet you this morning, blah de blah. And that's fine, you've done your basic follow-up, but that actually doesn't do anything, I don't think, anymore. People get so many emails, your little one-liner which says, nice to meet you, probably won't register too greatly. If they're on LinkedIn, that would be much more powerful. So you give the sentence ahead of the standard default. So instead of just going, I would like to connect with you, you start off by saying, hey, great to meet you this morning at the blah, blah, blah breakfast, and then leave it as I would like to follow up on LinkedIn. And that reminds the person that you're connecting with where you met them and and just jogs them. Because sometimes you get these invitations and you think, who the hell's this, because I don't remember. And that way you will never be seen as trying to connect with somebody that the other person doesn't know, because on LinkedIn that is very much frowned upon, and you can get your account closed down if you do that too much. So make it, when you are following up, you've done your little LinkedIn. So if you're going to do your sort of one sentence outlook about something specific, then that's great. Or if you do a lot of networking, you could consider having a little postcard type thing printed. Make sure you've got your contact details on, and make sure it's really effective about you. Probably worth getting somebody in design or advertising just to make that look really powerful and really effective. And as I say, I've just said about the contact details. You'd think that would come as a standard, but I actually received a very nice postcard as a follow-up, and there were no contact details on it, so it's not as daft as really double check.
I love this idea actually about sending a postcard, because I know that the only sort of conventional mail I get nowadays, they're normally bills.
Absolutely that. We just don't get that. We don't get the hard copy mail outs anymore. And if you have a clever little postcard done with some sort of image of your brand on the front, it can be really useful, and you can use it at networking events. You can use it in multi ways. You could use it as a double print side for a mail out. You could have it as a single print just on the one side and use it as your follow up. Lots and lots of ways. So you're not investing a lot of money just on one purpose thing. Always try and use, if you're spending money on anything, try and get it to have lots of uses.
Yeah, excellent plan. Very good idea.
Okay then. So you're following up. Now let's go back to the email idea, and bear with me for a minute while we just look at your email signature. If you've recently started off business, the temptation is often to keep with your Gmail account, AOL, Hotmail, whatever. Please get rid of that as soon as you can and have it linked to your website address. It doesn't look professional. It really doesn't look good at all. And so, some of them, I think it's AOL, you end up having to scroll all the way down the other message before you can get to see what the person's written back again. So it's really not friendly, and not, you're not going to be perceived to be professional with those sorts of accounts. The other thing is to make sure that your signature on your email is user-friendly and that it gives the recipient everything he or she wants to know. So obviously you need your first name and surname, you need your company name, you need what you do in the company. You need ideally a strapline or a sentence about your business. Obviously your telephone numbers, your landline, your mobile, your Skype, your email address, your website, links to your social media sites. Really good, because then if somebody wants to link with you, you've got the LinkedIn link already there, and they haven't got to go looking for you on the profiles there. And if you've done a special article or a blog, then pop that in as well. Okay, it gets a bit long by this stage, but if you keep changing, say, particularly that link to the articles and the blogs, then it keeps it interesting and it makes it appropriate. The other thing I would say is to consider how the person that you met is most likely to want to be communicated with. That's not a very good sentence English-wise, but I hope you get the idea. If you've come across the DISC quadrants, whereby people's behaviours are broken down into, the D stands for directing, task and quick, I is for influencing, S is for supportive, and C is contemplative. People are very different, and if you send an email, for example, to an MD, to an FD, say, and you waffle on in your email, the chances are it won't even get past the first line. For a finance person, particularly, you want it short, succinct, and end of, and put links to anything that you want to link to. If you look up on the internet, you'll find lots of info, and then you can use it as you see fit. I touched earlier on about exchanging business cards, not to give automatic permission to follow up by putting them on a sort of database for e-signs. You do need to get their permission. There's lots of ways of doing that. Either you get permission at the time and sort of say, well, I do a fortnightly, monthly, really brief, interesting news update, and I'd love to add you to it. Is that okay? So that's fine. You've got their permission. If you're following up by email, just say in the email, I do a regular fortnightly update. I would love to include you. Don't worry, there's always the opt-out, so there's no issue. So please let me know if that's not convenient. You can almost do it by default. I did have a word with the GMA, and they said that would be okay. The ideal format, if you've got one of these more sophisticated databases which allows people to sign up and then you get the double opt-in, then that obviously is the perfect scenario. But as long as you've got the opt-in initially and you've got the opt-out on every single communication. And let's just touch too on mobile phone messages. You need a separate sign up for that. I really get annoyed if somebody starts databasing me with email messages. With phone messages, because I didn't sign up for any of those. And they invariably don't have an opt-out. And again, if you're going to do that, you need the opt-out. You're breaking all the laws if you don't have opt-outs. If you are sending out an email newsletter, don't just abandon the bounce backs when you get them in. Do go through each and every one, update your records and update your contacts so that your next send will have fewer bounce backs and pick up the information. You get people's mobile numbers on it. You get all sorts of information on those, so just don't ignore them. You can get out of networking what you're prepared to put in, but you do need to work about it. Remember that nobody goes to a networking event to buy. They all go to make contacts. They all go to create relationships, and you must make it easy for people to do just that. It is a fantastic way of making business and creating relationships, but it's not going to come within one go. You need to go lots of times and keep that relationship building. So enjoy it, and I look forward to speaking to you again soon.
That's brilliant, Debbie. Thank you very much. There's some brilliant tips there. So absolutely superb stuff. Mobile phone messages. I was just going to pick up on that just before we finish. So I must admit, they drive me mad as well. So I didn't realise that you had to ask separate permission for that.
It's separate permission, Silva. Separate permission for the mobile phone messages. And also, possibly something I didn't mention, if you're asking somebody permission to send them a monthly newsletter, say, and then you want to do it for a fortnightly newsletter, technically you should ask for renewed permission. Now that's getting awfully detailed, and I'm sure that doesn't happen very often. So the rule, the easy way around that would be not to make it too specific when you're sort of saying, can I send you my, regular news update? It's not too often type of thing. Just make it a bit more vague.
Well, thank you very much, Debbie, and I hope everybody gets lots of useful information from that. That was really great, and we'll definitely, you're going to have come back, Debbie, another time and give us more.
Okay, my pleasure.
Thanks very much.
Bye.
So a big thank you once again to Debbie Newman of Armstrong Beach there, who came back with some great tips there on how to follow up after you've been networking. So thanks again for listening to this week's Coffee Break podcast. We'll be back with you in the next couple of weeks, but don't forget, if you need anything, we're just at the end of the phone. Just give us a call and we'll be happy to help you with any queries to help you with your business.